All right, everybody. Hello and welcome back to the final stream for the Mania 7 Key World Cup 2026 round of 16 weekend. We had a lot of wonderful matches and unfortunately had to say goodbye to 8 teams this weekend. And now we are left with the top 24 going on into the quarterfinals weekend. But before we go into next weekend for the quarterfinals, we need to do one more thing, and that is to show off the quarterfinals map pool. And to do that, I am Toph Daddy, one of your commentators, joined here by one of the map pool selectors, Tails DK. How's it going?
Hello everyone. It's very exciting this week. We are gonna be increasing the difficulty yet again. Like, we saw quite a bit of struggle on some of the maps this week, and I'm gonna be very excited to see how teams are gonna be doing on this map pool for next week.
Yeah, I mean, that's really it. The difficulty is going to be increasing. We've got 2 extra maps in the pool to go along with the higher best of count for the quarterfinals matches. We're moving to best of 11 this week, so first to 6, and with that, like I said, 2 extra maps in the pool. And I'm really excited to, just like you, see how these players are able to adapt to a notably harder map pool this time around.
Yeah, it's gonna be really exciting, but I think without further ado, let's just get right into the first map.
Alright, and map number 1, as always, is going to be our Rice 1 pick, our speed selection. It's going to be MetaHuman Boys Speed Bomb, a map by Carpy Hat. Star rating looks a little low, but that BPM is 270 BPM, and it's going to start off pretty calm too, so you might be just waiting for it to kind of get a little bit more difficult. You see some of those bursts coming in, but as it goes on, you will start to see why this is in quarterfinals as the next map in our Rice 1 category.
Yeah, we're just gonna see it slowly pick up here, and now the streams really begin. And it does have plenty of breaks throughout, but the patterns themselves are honestly quite comfortable. They're gonna be split across the hand, so they're not gonna have too much of an issue with like trills or midi jacks or whatever in this one. It's just gonna be pretty simple 270 BPM streams with quite a few different snaps mixed in here.
Yeah, you can see a few smaller bursts in the middle of even some of these streams, and these streams actually in general a little bit less dense comparatively from what we've seen in the previous weeks. This one just a lot more heavily focused on the actual speed and patterns this time, so really starting to take the form of what you would normally expect to be your speed in Rice 1 pit.
Yeah, do you see here? We do get a pretty long break here as well before the final section, so it has plenty of breaks as well, so it's not like it's gonna be too tricky on the stamina either.
Yeah, this ending definitely starts to bring the pedal to the metal. It gets it a little bit more difficult. There's plenty of like small gaps between the longer speed streams. So like you said, not really going to be a stamina test, or really going to be a pure speed requirement that these teams are going to need if they want to pick into this.
Yeah. And that is the first Rice map of the pool, but let us see. Moving on to our second Rice pick is gonna be Dense Chord Streams. This is gonna be level 4 Angel Dust 2016 radio mix by Kobe. And we're really gonna step up the difficulty here for the Dense Chord Stream pick, as it's gonna be quite a bit more dense, I wanna say, a little bit more dense, but it's gonna be more relentless. It's not gonna have these small breaks in between. It's just gonna be all out chord stream with all kinds of patterns throughout.
Yeah, absolutely. You're seeing this first section be pretty much non-stop. You don't get any of those small broken chord stream type patterns And on top of the density being there extremely consistently throughout this map, it does also increase the BPM to 170, so a 10 BPM increase on this dense core stream pick to go along with the additional stamina requirement that this one is going to need comparatively to last week's Rice 2.
Yeah. We do see it in the first half, but there's some brackets involved, but there isn't gonna be too many around, but that will really change once the main chorus kind of hits. We'll be seeing a lot more brackets once that comes around.
Yeah.
For now, we have a little break.
Yeah, we had a little break. You get the long break there, and then even in the build-up, it starts to get really dense. And like you said, it's going to get into this chorus section, bring back the intensity, and increase the bracket prevalence in general throughout this section. You can see, especially in those drum transitions, those brackets are really there to mess you up.
Yeah, and especially right here at the end, we do have a small density increase. Once these kind of piano sounds are coming in as well. So it just gets even more dense just for right at the end, but it's pretty comfortable overall. There's a dense code stream pick, so it's not gonna be the worst thing ever for players, I don't think.
Yeah, definitely not. Angel Dust, a classic in the Mania scene, coming back for 7Q World Cup. Going to be our Rice 2, and with that we can move into our faster chord stream pick. This one's going to be our Rice 3, Sakamiya Valkyrie Revolution. And a really good score from Chiwi there for our replay there, but this is going to be a little bit more straightforward, I think, than what we've been seeing so far. It's just lighter chord stream at 207 BPM, so a 17 BPM increase from last round, but as mentioned, this is going to be pretty straightforward. No need to worry about the density of it all, and it's quite short to boot, so stamina won't be too big of an issue either.
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty comfortable, I think. This is definitely gonna be a pick that many teams will probably want to play this week, I think, because it's just super straightforward, and we saw this week that the fast code stream pick got picked quite a bit, so we'll probably also see that next week with this one also being pretty straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. A similar structure-wise to Angel Dust actually getting this break here with extreme low density, but this one's going to have a little bit easier of a build-up as we get back into more of the light and fast chord stream here with the 1/3 patterns in the brackets, but right back into it as the density increases just a little bit in this ending, but still nothing too dense to really worry about, especially at this speed.
Yeah, something to watch out in this section is there's gonna be these small bursts in this ending here that may be a little bit tricky for some players and can mess you up. You saw one just where you have these small 1/8 for all of them, but other than that, it's pretty just big, straightforward, fast chord stream.
Now we just have this ending where it has a few double streams just to end it off, a little density increase just for the ending, but nothing patterned too difficultly, I suppose, if that's the word.
Yeah. Moving on to our Rice 4 pick, we're gonna have Crest Gargoyle by Yi, and this is gonna be our chord jack pick, and it's gonna be following a bit of the trend from last week, where we saw quite tricky patterns that were mixed in all the way throughout. We're gonna get straight into it, and you're gonna see these like longer jacks here mixed in, but they're not as predictable as last week, where it was very predictable when they were gonna happen. They're just gonna be kind of mixed in with these smaller density bursts mixed in throughout as well.
Yeah, I think the other part of it too is that they're just so much more prevalent. Like, you would have the long jets that happen once every like 4 beats, and then that was it for the first half, and this one definitely shows much more consistency with the long jacks in general. So despite only being about a 6 BPM increase from last week, it is definitely going to be much harder to get good coordination and keep combo on specifically. I expect the accuracy for everyone in this tournament to be very, very good on something like this. It really is just about keeping those mistakes to a minimum. But when those long jacks come to play, it can be really hard to stay consistent with a full combo on this map.
Yeah. And that's the same kind of thing as last week. The second half is gonna be a little bit more predictable. It's gonna have these bigger chords mixed in more and less of these long jacks that are less isolated as in the first half was. But it's gonna have some real density bursts like here, where you see big chords coming in.
Yeah, you've got a lot more of the 5 and 6 note chords all happening in small bursts. But there's also like significant, in a certain way, a lot of these patterns are actually a little bit awkward too. Even some of the smaller patterns can be pretty awkward to hit in general, even if they don't have those long jacks. So a
Yeah.
little bit trickier on the chord jack side this week. But with that, we can move into our first of 2 technical picks here in this rice pool. This one is going to be AL1S's Bibi Diba with UZ Queen, a map by Irone? No, I did read that right the first time. But this is going to be your tech accuracy. It's going to be similar to the Rice 5s from previous pools, where it's quite swingy and has a really high focus on making sure you can keep your accuracy when it comes to more flam-heavy patterns.
Yeah, I will say this one is a little bit more physical just because it has a lot more jacks mixed in, as well as these streams are more consistent, whereas last week's couple of Rice Tech picks have been kinda sporadic with the structure and changing all the time. This one is definitely way more consistent, most like a dump stream kinda map.
Yeah, but even with the higher physicality, the density of the map overall is still pretty low, so reading really shouldn't be that much of an issue. It really is just about the technical ability of the players mashed up with their ability to get good accuracy when it comes to really tough patterns. And that OD 7.7 not doing them any favors for trying to keep your accuracy high. In these kinds of maps, it is very, very common for just random 200s to drop, and that's the kind of thing that you have to be able to control if you want to pick into this.
Yeah, for sure. We see it doesn't really have like much of a break throughout here either, so you really have to keep your focus all the way through. You see here these big grace notes.
It's just all over the place. It's kind of an interesting situation where the actual like bursts that come through and like longer streams aren't necessarily constant just because of the swinging nature of it and dumpy nature of it, but then you also get those flammy type patterns on top of those awkward rhythmic streams.
Yeah. And as Kobe said, there used to be a funny spacebar jack in the middle that we removed. It still exists on the set if you want to look at it as a non-edit. But moving on to our Vice wildcard tag this week, and it's gonna be Glassy Heart, song by Illus Min featuring Bob Hugh. This is a PWHK map, and this map is gonna be really rude. It's gonna be really hard to keep combo on this one. We're gonna see very tricky jacks and quite uncomfortable bursts that are just gonna be really hard to hit. We already see some starting here.
Yeah, this map definitely starts to get into the tech side that I think a lot more of the tech side that people would maybe expect, where you have the hard tech with the mini jacks and the really hard to coordinate patterns just right back to back, and the rhythmic changes all over the place. So instead of hitting that like dumpy and swingy type tech, this is like pure technical skill requirement.
Yeah. You see it. Even like here in the break section, like we've got like these like small grace notes almost everywhere throughout. So it's like Not even in the break can you just chill.
Definitely going to be a big need for focus on a map like this, and especially I mentioned OD 7.7 for the previous map. This one's even meaner to you and puts it on OD 8, so a lot of care has to be put into getting good accuracy on this. But that said, if you focus too hard on accuracy, that can cause issues with combo, especially with a map as volatile as this. So you have to be able to balance those two. You have to be able to balance accuracy and combo to try and do what you can, but that can be really difficult when it just doesn't really give you a chance to breathe for the most part.
Yeah. You see at the ending, it's a little bit more predictable, but not really. For a short moment. It keeps like changing the song as well, so it's just hard to figure out how you're supposed to be hitting the patterns, at least the first time. You're gonna have to play this one a couple times.
Yeah, not to mention that this is potentially against type 3 minutes long, so the longest of our rice picks in the regular rice pool. And that is going to potentially cause some stamina issues, maybe mental stamina if it comes down to that, but especially with some of these really tough patterns. That long jack was so rude.
Yeah, we see a
And
couple
doing
space
that right
jacks
at the
in
end,
here.
doing that after 2.5 minutes of going through everything else in the map is just mean.
Yeah, I think this one is definitely something to consider either protecting or banning, considering your team situation on this.
Yeah, that is a brutal pick, but that will finish off our regularized pool. We'll be able to go into our long nodes, and this is going to be Kirara Magic's Kirara's Atelier, a map by Xneko, and LN1 has been our release pick, and this is no different. This will be almost 3 minutes with a low OD, but this is effectively what we've been expecting. It continues the trend from last week's, has really difficult staggered releases in general, and just picks up the difficulty a little bit. Still does not require that much physicality, but that does not mean it's easy to combo in any sense.
Yeah, something to notice that this week also does require a bit of coordination in the release pick, whereas we've tried to keep it mostly out of the release pick. Just a natural progression as the release picks gets harder. At some point you will have to start introducing a little bit of coordination, but it will be much easier coordination-wise than the coordination map, of course, so it's not gonna be too difficult for teams that already were comfortable with the coordination picks from the previous rounds.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to play a similar role as it has been. It's either going to be protected while the coordination pick, the LN2, gets banned, or LN2 gets protected, and this one ends up getting banned out by the teams that are less comfortable with the coordination aspect to most of these long note charts.
Yeah. We do see it does have a little bit of a chill section, but it's not really chill because you're still gonna have to pay attention to these LN releases everywhere while the density slows down a little bit. It does not become any easier. But we are back into a little bit more of the dense section. You can see like how everything just has like these kind of different release timings in this map, so it's just gonna be like really hard to properly hit, especially those on the one hand where they're releasing at the same time, or a different time rather. It's gonna be quite tricky.
Yeah, and I mentioned it when I introduced the map. This is 3 minutes long, nearly 3 minutes long. So a little bit different than what we've been seeing, where that requirement of focus on the releases specifically is going to have to last a lot longer than you might expect. And especially when it gets denser towards the ending here, with it continuing these staggered releases, I think that's going to be really hard to keep consistent on.
Yeah. Something to note, I guess, since we're talking about the length, this map pool in general is a little bit on the longer side of the map pools that we have. It just came together like that, but we do have some of the longer songs, I'm pretty sure, this week. But
Definitely
yeah,
seems like that so far.
moving on to our LN2, this is gonna be long note coordination. It's gonna be Orange, Hanatan, and this is gonna be another X-Neko map. We are gonna switch out the Chinese pop this week for J-pop to some people. Happiness, I guess. We were not very big fans of the super slow Chinese pop, but we're back this week. And it's gonna be a pretty long map this time around, also 3 minutes. But something to note is that the density is gonna be quite high on this one, at least compared to the last couple of weeks where it was just mostly focused on the simpler coordination. We're gonna have a lot more notes throughout here trying to make you finger lock on different patterns.
Yeah, the other part of it too is that this is actually, I think, a little bit faster than last week's as well, which means those reverse shields that are coming up so commonly in this map are going to cause a little bit more of issues than they would have in the round of 16 pool.
Yeah, I still don't think they're like super fast enough to where it's like the main problem, but it is definitely when you're holding down all of these other long notes, gonna be quite tricky to not accidentally release.
Definitely. Jax can always do that to you, and this is definitely starting to hit that speed where it might become a bit more of a problem. This one, another quite long pick as well, so it hits over 3 minutes this time. So those coordination picks definitely testing your mental fortitude with the length of them, because we're only halfway through this map, and it's already been extremely difficult so far.
Yeah, we do get a little bit of a break here. I think this part is not too difficult. They remove the long notes here for a bit and make them a little bit more simple, so you do get a moment there to refocus before it really starts here again.
Yeah, but it still does maintain a little bit of that density, not quite as dense as what we saw already in this map, but it still does keep it there, and that coordination requirement with the high density is going to matter a lot. And now that density does start to come back as we approach the last quarter, and this ending is going to... It's going to give you a lot to deal with here, is what I'll say.
Yeah, getting into the last chorus where the density like maxes out there, as you can see. Just super tricky to properly coordinate all of these long notes and not accidentally release them. There's some really long notes mixed in here, especially on the spacebar once in a while.
Definitely, and this ending gives you a little bit of a reprise on the chorus, an extra bit on to the end of it, and changes up a little bit of how these coordination sections are working. So a little bit of a change up right at the end that you'll have to make sure you're ready for. And that is going to do it for our LN2 coordination pick as we move into potentially a little bit more comfortable of an LN pick for some of these players. Our density pick, we've got another VTuber song, Nakiri Ayame Goodbye Sengen. 170 BPM, and this is more of what you would probably expect. That star rating is really high, but the difficulty I don't think is going to be too bad as far as that goes. I think this map is going to be very straightforward for a lot of players.
Yeah, it's gonna be classic like O2 Jam style density where you have like this smaller density sections coming in between with these, but like not too complicated to really hit per se. We see how the chorus sections here. This is gonna be the biggest density section of the map related these choruses, where it's like gonna go really high density. It's also, I want to point out, 2 minutes and 50 seconds, so it is a bit longer. Again,
these long note maps not giving you any room to work with shorter maps. You have to be consistent at it for quite a long time in this situation. We're through the first chorus, and we get a little bit of a reprise of the intro, just a little bit denser than what we've seen, but this should just pretty much repeat a couple of times. The second chorus is going to be pretty similar to what we've already seen, but we do get a little bit of a break here in the verse section and give you a little bit of time to breathe with some lower density LNs.
Yeah, as we say that, it starts to pick up again.
That's how it goes. That's how these songs are structured, I guess.
But yeah, generally these sections in between here, you can see they're not gonna be the hardest thing to play, I'd say. So there should be quite a lot of act gains to get here. And also, just in general, there's gonna be a lot of combo throughout this map as well on density pick. So misses are gonna be not too crucial. Just because it is got a lot more combo. You are gonna get back up to that 400 combo really quickly.
Yeah, then we hit this last chorus, which has similar patterns, but a lot denser of long notes here at the ending, so you have to be ready for that increase in density.
Yeah, spikes here a little bit at the end. You can see big density all the way throughout here at the end.
And then you get a little bit of an inverse spike here at the end as well. So not just pure density, you're going to get a little peek into how inverse is going to be working here as well.
Yeah. But with that, speaking of inverse, we will be moving into our inverse map, which is gonna be Celestial Intervene by LEH2, a map by Ruka. And this is gonna be a Ilan inverse map, and as you can see, it's already starting out here. It's not gonna be completely fully inverse, but you will see that there are gonna be these like kinda mixed sections, but it's still gonna be pretty low BPM. So the inverse part is gonna be the part that's really going to be challenging you.
Yeah, so this density is going to be sticking around for most of the map. That LN3 having been just about 170, so the speed there is going to be more important of an aspect there, but the coordination required for the faster inverse patterns, it's going to play like a density pick in a way. It's just going to add that extra challenge with the coordination required to do pure inverse for a lot of these slower density patterns in general.
Yeah, you do get a break here in between. A little bit of a coordination break.
Yeah, you say break, and then people are going to be dropping on it because it requires a lot of coordination, and then...
But here we go. Back into inverse.
And this is really heavy coordination requirement inverse as well. It's more slow, like jack type patterns versus the more density and chord stream type LN patterns where we're about to get into with a lot of that high density that we saw in the beginning as well.
Yeah. It's overall gonna be a pretty tricky map for teams, I think, but it's gonna be a pretty fun map for some teams, I think. So this was definitely something I can see being picked, even though it is an inverse map. It does have a lot of other elements mixed in.
Yeah, those bursty type patterns to the vocals were very satisfying to look at. I don't know how they'll play, but that looks really nice. And despite this being extremely dense and extremely difficult, I think the players are going to have a good time with something like this.
Yeah.
But that's going to finish off our LN pool. We'll start going into our hybrids, or at least the regular hybrids in the pool. And we'll start with Hybrid 1, which is going to be Ikaruga Nex's Blaze's Assault. This one, we're finally getting a little bit more short maps. We had LN4 a little bit short. This one, just over 2 minutes. And this one's going to be more of a generic hybrid. It's going to have a lot of comfortable patterns with just both rice and long notes. It's about what you'd expect from your Hybrid 1 selections. It's going to be probably the most comfortable of the hybrids that are available to the players in this pool.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more LN focused compared to the fast hybrid that will come later here. which will be more rice focused. We're gonna see these long notes be pretty involved with the patterns all the way throughout. It's gonna be very mixed, this one. Like some weeks we've seen like some sections be just long note focused and some sections be rice focused. This one is gonna be mixed all the way pretty much, with just a few smaller sections that are like just rice.
Yeah, this map going by very quickly so far. Like you said, a lot of LNs intertwined with these patterns just in general. Halfway through this map, we're going to get a little bit more technical of a section here with a lot of bursts, but still has a quite heavy LN involvement with them. Mostly single LNs with a little bit of additional in there. So this will be a little bit more heavy on the physical requirement and the rice aspect, despite having some LNs just intruding on it. But that's gonna be your basic rice section going into the chord stream now as well. So you still, despite this being more of a long note heavy hybrid, you're still gonna need that physical capability to keep up with the rice patterns.
Yeah, we see the long notes really coming in here in this section. He's really gonna take over the section. But yeah, the code stream section should be pretty doable for teams. It's definitely easier than the rice maps, so they shouldn't be too tricky. But the long notes mixed in are definitely gonna be quite tricky.
Yeah, definitely, and especially in that ending where a lot of those LNs are separated, and you've got a little bit of even coordination required in that ending, despite the physical requirement as well. 173 is not easy to keep up with. You're gonna have to be able to balance that a lot in that section.
Yeah, but with that, we will be moving into Hybrid 2, which is a fast hybrid. This is gonna be Miracle Tale by a good ending version by Korodi and Trial. And this is gonna be a map by PWHK. This is gonna be way more rice focused. We're gonna see some long notes mixed in all the way throughout, of course, but they're gonna be generally quite short. But they're not gonna be like really held down for too long, other than the ones that are very on the side and not really intruding the patterns too much.
Yeah, we got a little bit of an LN section here, but this map is 207 BPM, which means it's just a little bit underneath the speed of our light quarter stream pick from the rice pool, so still going to be requiring a lot of speed as far as like the physicality that we've seen, so it's not pulling too many punches as far as the physical requirement on this hybrid.
Yeah, also something to note, it is quite long at 3 minutes 30, but the first 30 seconds there's nothing happening, so it's closer to 3 minutes with quite a lot of breaks in between. So shouldn't be too stamina draining, even though it is a bit longer.
And this section we're going into, we have actually something similar to what I was mentioning in that hybrid one, where it was mostly single note long nodes just with surrounding like light chord stream patterns. And I mentioned this one not too much slower than our actual chord stream pick, so balancing that out is going to be particularly difficult, I think.
Yeah. And we see here it's the build up here. And this pad is gonna be quite tricky. These long notes and like rice patterns are very unorthodox, I wanna say. Not gonna
they
be
definitely seem that way. They almost, the way that it looks is that it kind of plays like rice, where the releases are just short enough where you can almost do that, but you still have to be cognizant of when to like hold down for just slightly longer than you would normally on your rice notes.
Yeah, that section in particular is gonna be a little bit tricky for players, I think. But as I said, we do have a lot of intermission breaks here, as you can see. But getting back into the ending here, as we can see, it is very, as I said, rice focused, because we're gonna see, like, there are some long notes in here, but they are gonna play mostly like rice. It's gonna be mostly the long LNs you're gonna have to really watch out for, and then of course releasing too early on these smaller long notes.
Yeah, absolutely, and a long spacebar LN with some double streams to surround it to finish off the chart to get us out of hybrid to our more rice and speed focused hybrid. And our final regular hybrid of this pool is going to be Rim's Deadline Syndrome, a map by Ulazis. And this one definitely going to be a lot more LN focused and more technical. This is going to be our technical hybrid. So you're going to see a lot more coordination-esque LN patterns, as you can already see in this intro section, but also we're going to have a lot more technical of rice patterns, which you can tell just based on the amount of mini jacks and reverse shields we're already seeing just in these first few seconds.
Yeah, this one is gonna be quite ruined, I think. But it is a really fun map overall, so hope people will enjoy this, because it is gonna be quite a bit of dump patterns mixed in. They're gonna be long nodes, they're gonna be rice patterns, as you said. You can see a bunch of the long node stuff here. But it's not gonna be like too out there, I don't think, for players to play this one. Not like the rice tech map with Wildcard, which was really, really hard.
Yeah, so it won't be pushing the rice difficulty too hard, but those mini jacks are going to be a little bit tough. Even at 151 BPM, they can be pretty difficult to handle, especially on those shields. I would be very careful with trying to keep the long nodes held down when it comes to those patterns. Not to mention that in between all of these coordination-esque LN patterns, you have a few bursts and some staggered releases that are not easy to coordinate at all.
Yeah. You do get a small break here in between, which is needed because this map is on the longer side for sure, and it doesn't really have much of a break once it really gets going with its pattern, so yeah. Getting in here to big rolls here for these rice patterns here. These are gonna be
those rolls are quite fast. They look like they are probably 1As, which would put them at 300 BPM, and that is not an easy speed to keep up with.
Yeah, this map is just gonna keep throwing these like flame rolls at you pretty much all the time. We do have a little bit of a rice section here. Gonna be a little bit more simple to read. Not gonna have all of the long notes involved, but immediately afterwards we are gonna mix them.
Mix them with some quite hand-biased LNs as well. Swaps from the left to the right hand pretty exclusively, so hand bias is going to be a big deal, especially going into that ending after 2.5 minutes of already trying to deal with the rest of the hybrid.
But with that, it's been long awaited. Take it away. That was Witch's Slave versus Kefi Magicariza, a map by PWHK, Kolpaka, and Lulu M. This was a big project. The illustrator of this was Narikan, a graphics design by Mocha, as well as the graphic design as quality assurance by Alex Dunk and Nariakan, and everything coordinated by yours truly, Sakura006. This was a really cool EX1 map to have this week. Very excited to see teams play this. It's a very fun map. It's very difficult as well as the EX1 pick. So hope players and everybody will enjoy this map next week.
Yeah, I mean, Witch's Slave Kefi, Witch's Slave was a name I never would have expected to see on one of these, so that was already really exciting for me, but that map looks absolutely brutal, and it's really going to be exciting to see how that goes. But without further ado, we'll move on to our EX2 pick, which is going to be our Long Note Extreme map. Hatsuboshi Gakuen Happy Meal Fuel. I think that's how you pronounce it. I can't really say for sure. It's real weird. It's like Meal Fuel. Never really understood how to do it, but this is going to be a very mixed LN map, and it's just going to be changing a lot. You're going to see a lot of different things. You already see some staccatos, actually, which is going to be really tough to deal with already, and it's just going to be a lot of everything. You're going to see inverse, you're going to see coordination, you're going to see density. It's just going to be a mixture of everything throughout this. And unlike previous rounds, this is actually quite short as well. Only about 2 minutes, so despite being harder, you're not going to have to keep it up for as long as many of the other LN maps in the pool.
Yeah, something to note as well is that there are throughout some 1/8 LNs, which are going to be really short on hard to hit. They are pretty isolated from the streams and stuff, but they may trip up some players. We saw some there. Just a really short
staccatos. One. Those staccatos are really not nice. I'm gonna say that right now.
Yeah, this map is just gonna be hard pretty much all the way through. There isn't gonna be like too much of like a break really. It's just gonna keep going.
Yeah, and we've got some more density type patterns and more staccatos right there. You get a little bit of a slower section that harkens more back to the inverse, but then transition right back into some more density with this ending chorus.
Yeah, something to note as well, there are some longer LMs here that you will have to really try to coordinate with while doing this big long note dense stream here as well.
Absolutely, but like I said, quite a short map. We're already at the end of it. The shortest of the long note picks in the pool, actually, so maybe could be popular just for that reason, but that'll finish off our EX2.
Yeah. Next up here we have our EX3. This is gonna be Lao Luminous Era, a map by Vivid Cycle. This map is brutal. We had to nerf it a lot of times. Let's just say that. But this map, you're gonna see pretty much everything once it really starts picking up. It does have a break before the ending, so it's gonna be 4 minutes, very long, but it does have a break towards the ending, so at least you get a little bit of a break.
Yeah, I think we're going to be continuing the pattern of this is probably the hardest map in the pool outside of the tiebreaker. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's expected
absolutely.
when you're talking about like a mini tiebreaker type match. Gives players an opportunity to play something as hard as this with the hybrid aspect. And already, even in the intro section, we're seeing some really difficult LN patterns with that coordination required. Some awkward releases, more awkward than they maybe look. But one way or another, even this intro is pulling no punches so far.
Yeah, and it is gonna start really picking up here just now with a first little right section. It's gonna be a little bit isolated like this for some sections where we have these right sections and then some long note sections and then some will be mixed. But here we have a right section where you see these kind of mixed right patterns where there's like these streams mixing with these chord stream patterns.
Yeah, and right now you get a little bit of a break, kind of a break. It's a slower section for sure, pattern-wise, but you still have to deal with some of those mini jacks as some, I guess, medium density chord string comes back out. So still having to deal with some of the more difficult rice patterns in this first half so far.
Yeah, and the hardest part is gonna be towards the middle. It's gonna be starting right here with this
Oh my
this
goodness.
section. It's gonna be very hard, but this is the easy part of the section.
That's the easy
Because,
part?
yeah,
Wait.
we're gonna add in more density here.
Yeah, that's insane. The density of the long notes by themselves, on top of having to balance that through with all of the mini jacks that are thrown in there with the burrs, is just and now it gets even worse.
Yeah,
What's
this part is
happening?
really brutal. This is definitely the hardest part of the map, for sure.
This is quarterfinals, right? I don't know if this is this is so brutal.
Yeah, but now you get a break.
That makes it all better. That makes it all better.
Yeah.
I'm sure the players will agree that the break completely takes over for the fact that there was just maybe the hardest thing we've ever seen in this at least in this year's tournament so far.
You know, how to do it. Just a small, big break here. Now we're gonna get back into a big long note here for the ending. With a couple of rice notes mixed in, but it's gonna be mostly long notes here for the ending. Like we had mostly right sections earlier. The ending is gonna switch it up and be more long note focused.
I saw that shield there on the 7th column there in the middle of all of those burns. You can't fool me by just putting that in the middle of there.
Don't worry about that
one. Don't worry about that one? I think I will. That might be, that's just kind of there. As the bursty long notes continue in the middle of some really dense rice patterns as well. That is no, Chewy! Right
Yeah,
at the end.
Chewy missing right at the end. This part also a little bit tricky. Very long notes. But
Absolutely absurd map to finish off the regular pool.
Yeah, that does it for the regular part of our pool. And with that, it seems like we are getting a phone call. So let's listen in.
So pure, so deep, so real.
that was Takehirote Seishun no Hacking, a map by Kobe, Uni, Chiwitan, and Mochi Neko. A big collab here. Everybody involved, big Malaysian collab as well. We've got a lot of people to thank for this song and everybody involved. We've got illustrations by Brushen and Hiro and Kori Hase, as well as graphic design by Seth and Mocha-san. And the storyboard you saw was made by Jerry and Reaction and Yoka. And we do also have a small video part made by Ioka. And as always, there's been insurance by Naraikat and Alex Dunk and Low Graphics and Polytetral. And all of it, of course, coordinated by yours truly, Sakura006. But that is not all. We do also have translations, as you saw, happening, and with lyrics in 3 different languages that are fully singable, by Mint, Mocha-san, and QK, so you can sing it in Japanese, English, or Malaysian. A very cool project, and that's not all. Later today, it should be getting qualified, or very soon, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. But that is gonna be all for our Mappool showcase, though.
Yeah, an absolutely insane Mappool, and that tiebreaker is something else. That storyboard was insane by itself, but still, 7.5 minutes, 14,000 combo on the quarterfinals Mappool. There's no pulling punches here, and there's some absolutely brutal patterning throughout the whole thing, not to mention the entire rest of the Mappool. So I am extremely excited to see how these players tackle this, and if we don't get a tiebreaker next week, I'm going to be so sad.
Yeah, this was a really cool originals we've been saving this week, and hopefully people are gonna calm down a little bit about it. Not that they're here, but yeah, that's gonna be all for our quarterfinals map pool. Drop your feedback as usual in the map pool feedback channel. Always read it, and we hope to improve it upon our next iterations of the World Cup if there is anything that is really wrong. So, but yeah.
Absolutely, it's going to be an exciting time. That'll finish it off for us. Make sure to tune back in next weekend for the Oceania 7 Cube World Cup 2026 quarterfinals, where a bunch of teams will be fighting for their lives in both the winners and the losers bracket on this amazing pool that we just saw. You are not going to want to miss it, and we will see you guys there.